I heard my wife whisper, "He can't find out." She thought I was still out in the garage putting away the ladder before the rain came in. I wasn't. I was standing just inside the mudroom, one hand still on the doorknob, listening without meaning to. Her voice was low. Careful. The kind of careful voice people use when they already know they're doing something wrong. "He's been asking questions lately," she whispered. "No. I know. Just give me time." Silence. Then softer. "He can't find out." I stood there frozen, staring at the floor mat by the door like it had suddenly become the only solid thing in the house. 29 years of marriage teaches you the difference between ordinary conversation and a voice carrying guilt. This was guilt. Real guilt. I should have walked in right then. Should have asked who she was talking to. Instead, I stepped backward quietly and let the garage door slam shut loud enough for her to hear it. A few seconds later, she appeared in the kitchen acting normal. Too normal. "You get the ladder put away?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. She smiled the same smile I'd seen for almost 3 decades. But suddenly it looked rehearsed. That was the first crack. Not the affair. Not the betrayal. Just the moment my brain finally stopped protecting me from what my gut already knew. Her name was Linda. 62 years old. Worked part-time at the church office 3 days a week. Everybody loved her. Honestly, I did too. Or at least I thought I did. We lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Indianapolis. Small brick house. White shutters she made me repaint twice because the first shade looked too cold. 2 grown kids. 1 grandson. A life built slowly over decades the way most people from our generation built things. Paychecks, sacrifice, routine. Nothing flashy. Just steady. And maybe that's why it hurt so much. Because steady people don't expect earthquakes. That night Linda said she needed to run by the church to help prepare for Saturday's charity dinner. I nodded like it was normal. But something had already shifted inside me. "Need me to come help?" I asked. "No," she said too quickly. "We've already got enough people." "We." Funny word. I watched her grab her purse and keys. Watched her check her reflection in the microwave door before leaving. She hadn't done that in years. The second her car backed out of the driveway, I grabbed my jacket. I told myself I wasn't following her. I was just calming my nerves. Just driving. That lie lasted about 4 minutes. The church parking lot sat on the edge of town beside an old baseball field nobody used anymore. When I pulled in across the street with my headlights off, Linda's car was already there. But the church lights were dark. No dinner prep. No volunteers. Nothing. Just one car sitting near the side entrance under a flickering lamp. And another vehicle parked beside it. Black SUV. Tinted windows. I felt my stomach tighten. I knew that SUV. Pastor Neil Mercer. 58. Perfect hair. Perfect teeth. The kind of preacher who always smelled expensive. People trusted him instantly. Especially women. I'd ignored that for years because I thought I was being insecure. Now I wasn't so sure. I watched the side door open. Linda stepped out first. Neil came behind her. And then he touched her lower back. Small gesture. Quick. But intimate in the way married people recognize immediately. You can fake words. You can't fake familiarity. I sat there gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles hurt. Part of me wanted to storm across that parking lot. Another part wanted to drive away and pretend none of it happened. Instead, I watched. That's the part people don't understand about betrayal at this age. You don't explode right away. You get quiet. Because your whole life is tied up inside the thing breaking apart. Mortgage. Retirement. Family holidays. Grandkids. Memories. Even your identity. You're not just losing a spouse. You're losing the future you already pictured. Neil leaned closer to her near the SUV. Linda laughed softly. I hadn't heard that laugh in a long time. Not with me. Then he kissed her. Not quick. Not uncertain. Comfortable. Practiced. Like it had happened many times before. Something inside me went cold. Not hot. Cold. That was worse. I drove home before they saw me. The whole way back I kept thinking the same thing. How long? By the time Linda came home an hour later, I was sitting in my recliner with the television on mute. She walked in carrying a foil tray. "Betty sent leftovers," she said casually. I looked at the tray. Still cold. She noticed me staring and quickly added, "They were cleaning up when I left." I nodded once. No argument. No confrontation. That seemed to bother her more than yelling would've. "You okay?" she asked. "Just tired," I said. That part was true. I was exhausted in a way sleep doesn't fix. The next morning I called my younger brother, Frank. Frank had been divorced twice and trusted nobody. At the time, I used to think that was bitterness. Now it sounded like experience. He answered on the second ring. "You sound rough," he said after hello. "I think Linda's seeing somebody." Silence. Then, "You got proof?" "Enough." That's not what I asked. That stuck with me. Because he was right. Seeing something and proving something aren't the same thing. Especially after 30 years. Frank told me something else too. "Don't confront her emotional," he said. "You'll hand control right back to her." That sentence stayed in my head all weekend. So instead of exploding, I paid attention. And once I started paying attention, everything changed. Linda guarded her phone suddenly. Started doing laundry at odd hours. Smiled at messages she wouldn't explain. Even her voice changed around me. Polite. Like she was already halfway gone emotionally. Monday afternoon I stopped by the church unannounced. Not dramatic. I just walked in carrying a donation envelope I didn't actually need to deliver. Neil's office door was cracked open. And I heard Linda laughing inside. Not secretary laughing. Not church business laughing. Personal. Comfortable. I stood there for maybe 3 seconds before knocking. The silence afterward was immediate. Then Neil opened the door smiling too quickly. "Harold," he said loudly. "Good to see you." Linda looked startled. Guilty people always do that tiny eye movement first. Toward each other. Like checking whether the story still matches. I handed over the envelope. Neil kept talking. Too much. People do that when they're nervous. I just listened. Then before leaving, I glanced at Linda and said quietly, "You forgot to mention you'd be here today." Her face changed slightly. Neil noticed. That told me enough. I started gathering paperwork after that. Quietly. Bank statements. Retirement accounts. Property documents. Nothing dramatic. Just preparation. You learn something ugly in your 60s. Love matters. But paperwork matters too. 3 days later my daughter Emily came by with my grandson. I almost told her everything. Almost. But I couldn't do that to her yet. She sat at the kitchen counter drinking coffee while little Mason played on the floor. "You and Mom okay?" she asked suddenly. I looked up too fast. She noticed. Kids always notice. Even grown ones. "We're fine," I lied. Emily nodded slowly. But she didn't believe me. That night Linda came into the bedroom wearing the blue sweater I bought her for Christmas years ago. The one she used to wear when she wanted closeness. Now it felt strategic. "You've been distant lately," she said softly. I almost laughed at the nerve of it. Instead I said, "So have you." She looked away first. That mattered. Then came Sunday. And honestly, that's when everything finally ended. Church was packed. Families everywhere. Kids running through hallways. Coffee brewing near the fellowship room. Normal. Completely normal. That's what made it surreal. Neil stood at the front shaking hands before service like always. When he saw me, he hesitated half a second. Most people wouldn't notice. I did. Linda sat beside me stiff as stone. Halfway through the sermon, Neil started talking about honesty, about temptation, about bringing darkness into light. I felt something almost funny rise in my chest. Not rage. Clarity. Pure clarity. And suddenly I realized something important. Men like Neil survive because everyone stays polite. I was done being polite. When service ended, people started mingling near the foyer. That's when I walked straight to Neil. Linda saw me moving and immediately stood. "Harold," she whispered sharply. "Too late." Neil smiled carefully when I stopped in front of him. "Everything all right?" he asked. I nodded. Then I said it loud enough for the people nearby to hear. "How long have you been sleeping with my wife?" The room changed instantly. Not loud. Still. Like oxygen disappeared. Linda grabbed my arm. "Stop." I pulled free gently. Neil switched into pastor mode immediately. Calm face. Measured tone. "Harold, this isn't appropriate." Neither was kissing her behind the church Thursday night. That landed hard. A couple nearby conversations stopped completely. Linda looked pale now. Neil lowered his voice. "We should discuss this privately." I shook my head. "No," I said. "Private is how this kept happening." Linda's eyes filled immediately. Not because she was sorry. Because the secret was dying. Big difference. Neil tried speaking again, but I kept going. "You sat in my living room for years," I said. "You prayed over my family." People were staring openly now. Nobody moved. Nobody interrupted. Because deep down? Most people already suspected something. They just needed someone willing to say it first. Finally Linda whispered, "Harold, please." And that word "please" carried 20 years of emotional control inside it. The old version of me would have backed down. The old version of me would have protected her from consequences. Not anymore. I looked at both of them and said quietly, "Normal life. But real this time." And after everything that happened, real felt better than perfect ever did. You don't get to use God as camouflage. Then I walked out. No screaming. No violence. No dramatic movie ending. Just done. The strange thing about betrayal late in life is this. People think the pain comes from losing someone. Sometimes it comes from realizing how long you abandoned yourself trying to keep everyone else comfortable. Linda moved out 2 weeks later. Small apartment across town. Neil stepped away temporarily from church leadership. Temporary. Funny word. Emily eventually learned the truth. She cried harder than I did. Frank helped me redo the spare bedroom. And slowly, life became quieter. Not happier at first. Just honest. A few months later I was sitting on my back porch early one morning drinking coffee when I realized something. The silence didn't hurt anymore. Birds in the trees. Cold air. Old knees aching from weather changes. My truck needing brakes again. And don't forget to subscribe.